Hi, I'm ladarian. Today's presentation of the pioneer in education psychology is Kenneth Bancroft Clark. He was an educator, psychologist, and a researcher. Mr. Clark, with the help of his wife, concluded that the prejudice, discrimination, and segregation created a feeling of inferiority among African American children and damaged their self esteem. Mr. Clark initiated the infamous doll test, and through that doll test study, the results were cited in arguments during the Brown versus Board of Education of Topeka, the landmark U.S. Supreme Court case that ruled segregation unconstitutional and sparked historical shift toward integration. Mr. Clark was born the son of Marion Hanson and Arthur Bancroft Clark. He was born on July 24, 1914, in the Panama Canal Zone. His family was originally from the West Indies. Kenneth's parents decided to separate because they wanted Kenneth and his sister Beulah to be educated in the United States. Mrs. Clark relocated with her children to Harlem, New York, while Mr. Clark remained in Panama Canal Zone because he believed that the discrimination in the United States would prohibit him working comparably to the job that he existed on in the Panama Canal Zone, which was the United Fruit Company. Being educated in the United States, Mr. Clark graduated in 1931 from George Washington High School in Upper Manhattan. He received both the bachelor and master's degree from Howard University in Washington, D.C. in 1935 and 1936, respectively. Mr. Clark enrolled at Columbia University, and in 1940 he became the first African American to earn the doctorate in psychology at the university. In further educational credit, Mr. Clark taught at Hampton Institute, which is now known as Hampton University. He taught from 1940 to 1941. He moved to the City College of New York a year later and became the first permanent Black faculty member after the administration requested that he start a department of psychology. In 1938, he met his wife, Mamie Phipps, who was a high school teacher. She was also a native of Hot Springs, Arkansas. In 1946, the Clarks founded the Northside Center for Child Development, which provided mental health and social services for children in Harlem. They had two children, one son, Hilton, and one daughter, Kate, and it is reported that they continued to stay happily married for 45 years until the death of Mrs. Clark. To Mr. Clark's field of work, he became the first Black professor to gain tenure at the City University of New York and was a distinguished professor emeritus at City College. He further taught at Harvard, Columbia, and the University of California. He served on the New York State Board of Regents for 20 years. Was in 1950 that Mr. Clark prepared the study that showed school segregation marred both Black and white students in their development. The Supreme Court agreed unanimously in 1954 when the final decision was made. The big study, or his claim to fame, was known as the Doll Study. In 54, that decision with the Brown and Board of Education was a game changer for him. This study, or the results from the study, was used to win that case. Chief Justice Earl Warren wrote that separating Black children from white solely because of their race generated a feeling of inferiority as to their status in the community that may affect their hearts and minds in a way unlikely ever to be undone. This study recorded the responses of 200 Black children who were given a choice of white or brown dolls. His findings illustrated that children showed preference to white dolls as opposed to Black dolls, and as early as 3 years old. To Mr. Clark's credit were several honors. In 1961, he received the Spingarn Medal of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People for his contributions to promoting integration and better race relations. In 1966, Columbia University awarded Mr. Clark and his wife with the Nicholas Mary Butler Medal for the significance of their work. In 1970, he was awarded an honorary doctorate by Columbia University, and in 1975, he was awarded the William L. Dawson Award from the Congressional Black Caucus. 4 Freedom Awards in the category Freedom of Speech in 1985, and in 1986, he received the Presidential Medal of Liberty. In 1994, he received 102nd Annual Meeting of APA 40 years after the Brown versus Board of Education. He was presented with an APA Award for Outstanding Lifetime Contribution to Psychology, which was made him one of 6 psychologists to receive that prestigious award. He went on to receive other awards, such as the recognition for his work that he had done with the American Psychology Foundation, which established him and his wife a fund supporting the research and demonstration activities that promote the understanding of the relationship between self identity and academic achievement, with an emphasis on children grades K through 8. In 2017, Columbia University's Department of Psychology established him and his wife the Distinguished Lecture Award, which recognizes extraordinary contributions of a senior scholar in the area of race and justice. Clark died at 90 years old on May 1st, 2005. Educators might ask, is this DOS study important to our education system on today? Well, there were 2 different views here. A writer named Zeke Jeffrey wrote that the DOS study conclusion was no more measurable than a typical self-esteem study. While another writer, Tony Sturdivant, she thought that it was necessary because she noticed the fight that her daughter was having with her identity. When she switched her daughter from one school system to the other school system, she saw an increase or a change in her identity because it was multicultural, and multicultural information was being taught among her peers. Therefore, she thought that the doll study is necessary for this day and time. This theory may not provide to be 100% accurate in science, but it is accurate enough to know that as society continues to face systematic racism and dislikes because of the color of skin, it is necessary for educators to be aware that we are leaders in all children. We must learn to always be fair and equal so that we will not harm children and their future.